Alright, the energy tape has just snapped, and what we are seeing in the global fuel markets today, Saturday, March 7th, 2026, is a total systemic repricing of the global economy. John A.G. has been tracking the energy-to-metal correlation for years, but the data hitting the terminal in the last 6 hours suggests that the cost of moving goods and extracting resources has officially entered a hyperinflationary feedback loop. While the mainstream media tries to tell you that these pump prices are temporary, the internal mechanics of the refining and transport sectors are screaming that the supply chain is being severed by a lack of affordable diesel. We are looking at a world where the cost of energy is not just rising, it is becoming a barrier to production. The energy trap has officially been set, and it is the final driver that will snap the neck of the paper-silver market. When it costs more to mine the metal than the screen says it's worth, the screen becomes a lie that no one can afford to believe anymore. The data hitting the private terminals regarding Brent crude and WTI is catastrophic for the stability of the Western consumer. We are seeing early weekend bids in the energy shadow markets hitting levels that suggest a $150 per barrel floor is the new reality. John A.G. is doing the math for you. When diesel prices cross the threshold of $7 or $8 a gallon in the major industrial hubs, the all-in sustaining cost, ADESI, for primary silver miners in Mexico and Peru doubles overnight. Silver mining is an energy-intensive industry. It requires massive amounts of diesel to run the heavy machinery and the transport trucks. If the price of fuel explodes, the miners have two choices. They either raise their physical ask price to triple digits, or they shut down the mines. Today, the data suggests they are choosing both. The fuel collapse is not just about your car. It is about the death of cheap silver and the end of the global supply chain as we know it. Look at the divergence in the global sentiment as the Eastern energy markets prepare for the new week. The BRICS nations have signaled that they will move toward a resource-based pricing model for all fuel exports, effectively decoupling the price of petrol and diesel from the US dollar. John A.G. has warned you that the petrodollar was the only thing keeping the paper-silver manipulation alive. Tonight, the data hitting the shipping terminals suggests that energy is being traded for hard assets rather than fiat currency. We are watching a commodity-for-commodity trade emerge where oil producers are demanding gold and silver in exchange for their liquid energy. The West is finding out that you cannot print diesel, and you certainly cannot satisfy an energy-starved world with digital ledger entries. The energy price explosion is the silent alarm that the dollar-denominated world has run out of collateral. The systemic lockdown we discussed throughout the week has now moved into the logistics and shipping corridors. We are receiving confirmed reports this afternoon that multiple major trucking fleets in Europe have suspended operations due to the inability to hedge their fuel costs. John A.G. knows what this means. In the world of high-stakes financial warfare, when the trucks stop moving, the shelves go empty. When the shelves go empty, the velocity of money spikes as people scramble to buy anything physical. This energy freeze is creating a massive secondary rush into silver and gold as people realize that paper money cannot buy fuel that isn't for sale. They are trapping the public in a digital cage, while the real resources, the oil, the food, and the metals, are being locked down under national security protocols. The industrial panic has reached a state of absolute hunger for the global tech and transport sectors. John A.G. has primary sources inside the logistics department of a major electronics manufacturer who says they were told at noon today that their shipping costs have increased by 300% in the last 48 hours. They are now in a direct bidding war for silver grain because they need to secure their future inventory before the energy tax makes mining impossible. Tesla and Samsung are realized that the green energy dream is being crushed by the reality of fossil fuel scarcity. You cannot build a solar panel or an EV battery without silver, and you cannot mine silver without diesel. The manufacturers are now bidding for physical silver atoms as a hedge against the total collapse of the energy-driven manufacturing model. The news from the Mexican mining belt remains the alpha trigger for this session. The Mexican government has issued an energy sovereignty decree, diverting all domestic diesel production to the national mining and agricultural sectors, effectively halting fuel exports to the north. This is a double whammy for the West. Not only is the silver production being nationalized, but the energy required to extract it is being locked within Mexican borders. John AG is tracking the satellite data, and we are seeing a total halt of or shipments toward the Western refineries. This means the 55 million ounces left in the COMEX is all the West has left to satisfy a world that is starving for strategic materials. The fuel collapse is the final barricade in the resource war. If you have the metal, you have energy. If you only have paper, you are left in the dark. The $35 trillion debt wall is the background fire that is being fueled by this energy crisis. The interest on the U.S. debt is now a mathematical wildfire that is consuming the entire global financial structure. John AG sees the price explosion of petrol and diesel as the final proof that the currency has lost its anchor. When it takes more and more paper to buy the same gallon of fuel, the credibility of the central banks vanishes. If they let the price of silver reflect its true scarcity and its new energy-adjusted cost of production, the system resets instantly. But they cannot suppress a physical deficit with a digital algorithm once the pumps run dry. The registered inventory numbers and the fuel price tickers are the two sides of the same collapsing coin. The exit is being closed by the high cost of energy, and the vault doors are being welded shut. Look at the gold to silver ratio as it compresses toward the 10-to-1 mark in the shadow markets today. This is the historical revaluation that John AG has prepared you for, the moment when the energy cost of production meets the monetary panic. During times of energy crisis and systemic collapse, silver traditionally outperforms gold because its industrial utility makes it a dual-threat asset. We are watching the value gap close with a violence that is breaking every algorithmic trading model in New York. The banks thought they could hide the silver shortage behind cheap energy and paper leverage. They forgot that when the cost of diesel goes vertical, the cost of silver must follow or the supply simply stops. Silver is the energy metal, and its repricing this weekend is the final signal that the fiat era is dead. Every emergency update I provide is rooted in the primary source, data of the vaults and the energy shipping manifests. The tape today is telling us that the plumbing of the global financial system is officially blocked by a lack of affordable energy. We are seeing record-high fails to deliver being reported in the silver ETFs as the Saturday settlement reports leak out. This means the millions of people who think they own silver through a brokerage account are discovering they own nothing but a digital promise from a system that can no longer afford to move the physical bars. John AG is telling you that the energy explosion is the final warning. In a world of digital IDs and fuel rationing, the physical bar in your hand is the only financial ledger that is truly sovereign. If you don't hold it, you don't own it, and you certainly can't trade it for the energy you need to survive. The face of shock you see in the data is the face of the institutional banker who realizes his short position is 1,000 times larger than the energy-adjusted cost of the metal he has to deliver. John AG sees this panic in the volume profile of the energy and metal OTC trades. There is a massive ask vacuum. People are bidding for diesel, people are bidding for silver, but no one is selling reality. The owners of the resources are sitting tight. They know that the Western system is insolvent and that the energy price explosion is the catalyst for the total reset. The hunter has become the prey, and the prey is out of silver and out of fuel. The out-of-service sign at your local gas station is the same sign that is currently being hung on the door of the COMEX vault. The central banks of the BRICS nations are currently finalizing the framework for a new energy-backed settlement unit. John AG is tracking the diplomatic flows, and silver is being positioned as the core industrial component of this new system. This is the endgame for the dollar-denominated world. When the world's major producers of oil and metals decide to trade in a unit backed by the very resources the world needs to function, the demand for the dollar falls to zero overnight. We are watching a hostile takeover of global price discovery by the people who actually produce the physical wealth. The paper changers are being evicted from the temple of finance, and they are leaving with nothing but empty tanks and empty vaults. This is the opening bell for the new monetary era. The no-hype philosophy is about looking at the mathematics of the energy drain. If you look at the global logistics data from the last 72 hours, the cost of transporting a 1,000-ounce silver bar has increased by 400%. The small man in the East understands what the Western expert does not. That paper is a promise, but energy is the reality. John A.G. knows that there are 8 billion people on this planet and only a few 100 million ounces of deliverable silver left in the West. The exit is narrow, and only the people who acted before the fuel collapse occurred will be able to secure their future. You are not speculating. You are ensuring your very existence against a systemic reset that is being driven by the high cost of living. The shift toward energy and resource nationalization is the ultimate confirmation of the resource war. If the producing nations decide that their silver and fuel are too vital to export to the G7 at current paper prices, the Western financial system becomes a historical relic. John A.G. is monitoring the diplomatic tension, and it is at a level of intensity that suggests the Monday morning open will be a gap into the unknown. The West is realizing that it cannot run a high-tech military or a green economy on paper promises when the petrol and diesel pumps are being locked down. They need the physical atoms, but those atoms are in the hands of the producers who are now demanding a seat at the table of global power. If you don't own the physical metal, you are merely a spectator in a war for survival. The industrial hunger for silver in 2026 has reached a terminal point where the military-industrial complex is now in a direct bidding war with the tech sector for every available ounce. Every high-tech missile, every satellite, and every advanced communication system requires silver for its superior conductivity, and every one of those systems requires energy to build and deploy. John A.G. has confirmed that the strategic national stockpile in several Western nations is functionally zero tonight. They have cannibalized their own reserves to maintain their current defense posture. This means there is no backstop for the currency. There is no government rescue coming when the retail public finally realizes the banks are empty and the fuel is gone. When the registered vaults hit zero, the market will move to no offer status. The John A.G. logo stands for Financial Warfare Education because we are in a war for the truth. The institutions have the media, the politicians, and the printing presses. But we have the tape. We have the numbers. And most importantly, we have the physical. Today's energy data is a total validation for everyone who ignored the hype and focused on the registered drain. We are on the right side of history, and the great wealth transfer is the event we are living through right now. The $35 trillion system is functionally dead. It just hasn't realized it yet because the digital screens are still pretending everything is normal. But the fuel collapse proved that the illusion is fragile and the reset is inevitable. The physical world is finally demanding its due. As the London shadow markets prepare for the Sunday night pre-open, they ask prices in the private dealer networks have jumped another 20% in the last 12 hours. John A.G. is seeing silver bars being traded for gold bars at a ratio of 15 to 1 into private vaults of Singapore and Dubai. The official price is a joke that only the uninformed still believe. The real price is being set by the people who have the metal in their possession and are refusing to sell it for a currency that cannot buy diesel. This is the market decoupling in its final stage. By the time the news tells you that silver is the new energy, there will be none left to buy at any price. You are the early minority who saw the math, tracked the tape, and prepared for the exit to be closed forever. I want to highlight the psychological warfare being used against you tonight. The headlines tomorrow morning will talk about temporary energy surcharges and technical market adjustments. This is a lie designed to keep you from pulling your value out of the failing digital systems. They want to trap you in the bail-in zone before the physical reality becomes undeniable. John A.G. has seen this movie before. In every crisis, they tell the public that everything is fine, right up until the moment they lock the doors. But the 2026 scenario is different because the energy shortage is so acute that they cannot hide it with paper contracts anymore. The truth is leaking out through the premiums at the pump and the empty vaults in New York. The energy explosion wasn't a glitch, it was a strategic realization. The manufacturers and the sovereigns have realized that the paper system is a threat to their survival. John A.G. knows that silver is the ultimate freedom asset. You cannot turn off a physical silver bar with a keystroke. You cannot tax a transaction that happens in physical metal outside of their digital surveillance system. This is why they are so desperate to keep the price suppressed. They want you dependent on their digital lies and their rationed fuel. But the physical world is finally demanding its due. The producers are striking, the East is bidding $175, and the vaults are empty. The paper system is burning, and the fire is spreading to the foundation of the global banking infrastructure. We are heading into a window of time that will define the next decade of your life. The March delivery madness has reached a terminal velocity, and the bullion banks are staring into an abyss of physical default. John A.G. predicts that we will see force majeure declared on several major energy and commodity exchanges before the weekend is over. This will effectively end the futures market and move the world back to a physical-only trade model. The paper trap has officially snapped shut. If you are in the physical, you have a seat on the lifeboat. If you are in the paper, you are part of the ship. Stay sharp, watch the tape, and remember, the system has officially snapped under the weight of the fuel collapse. I'll leave you with this final thought for the morning update. The exit is closed. The vaults are empty. The real value is in your hand. John A.G. will be back for the 7:30 a.m. morning update as the New York pit opens to what will likely be the most volatile energy and resource session in history. We are living through the greatest wealth transfer in 500 years, and the data is the only light in the fog of financial warfare. Stay disciplined, watch the premiums in Shanghai, and for the love of everything, keep your eye on the physical. The paper market is a sinking ship, and the fire has reached the boiler room. It is time to step out of the illusion and into the reality of physical metal. All right, MOU,